Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to another episode of The Cindy Donaldson Show. I am your host, Cindy Donaldson. I'm a certified high performance coach, serial entrepreneur, bucket list obsessed. I live in my RV traveling full time with my partner, Dave, and I'm on a mission to make sure that everybody in my circle learns how to not only create, but live an incredible life by design, because life's too short not to. So today we're going to talk about money. And that's a subject that I thought I would never talk about in my podcast. Why? Because at 61 years old, for the first time in my life, I'm really comfortable talking about it. And let me tell you why. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. Again, I'm 61 years old. My parents never talked about money unless it was something negative. And in fact, they fought about money all the time. My mother liked to spend, my father didn't. And then I went away to college. I took out loans, didn't really understand what that meant, didn't really understand what I was going to do in college because I was the first one in my family to go to college. Then I got married. Again, really didn't understand money. No one ever told me how to budget. I didn't understand any of it. And so I got a job, I paid bills, I spent, didn't really save a lot, got myself in and out of debt a couple times. And then some big things happened in my life. I got divorced, and we all know how expensive that is. I had a business that failed miserably. That cost me a lot of money. And I found myself in a really negative space, like with a credit score of around 300, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Like it was overwhelming and consuming. And I just did what I always learned, knew how to do. I worked and just paid it off, but never really had a game plan until about, I would say, 5 or 6 years ago. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I've got to figure it out. And, you know, I wasn't spending like a wild woman anymore. Like, that had gone. And I'd really learned about saving. And, I'm an educated woman and I've owned several businesses. Like, I can read a profit and loss statement. Like, I understood all of that, but I still had some of this debt like hanging on. Some of it was personal debt, some of it was business debt. And I've always been a risk taker. And so I'm not afraid to use somebody else's money to get forward. And some people will argue with me on that. I'm not afraid to carry a balance on my credit card if it's something that's going to get me to where I want to go. The bad part is when you have a lot of debt on credit that you know that you can't pay off in a specific amount of time. For instance, my son and I rehabbed a house last summer, and he and I owned it together, and I put probably $75,000 on credit cards, to pay for all the rehab stuff. And some of it I let sit there because I needed my cash to do other things. And so I did that. We sold the house, made a good chunk of money, and just paid off the debt. So in instances like that, I was okay. But what was hanging over me was I still had some student loans. Like, I defaulted on my student loans when I was in my 30s, when I had a lot of shit going on. I just couldn't afford it. I didn't understand the ramifications of that. I also had a bankruptcy. When my business failed, I was trying to keep my house, and I got some bad advice to declare bankruptcy at that time, and I ended up losing the house anyway. So I'm not saying that bankruptcy is bad. I think for some people, it is a really good thing to get out from crippling debt. But I didn't have a lot of credit card debt or anything like that at that time. So for me, it was a bad move. Again, it's really about, like, if you're in that situation, reaching out to somebody who's professional, who's been where you've been before, talking with somebody to make sure that you're making the right decisions. Fast forward though to about 5 years ago, I'd accumulated some business debt, and I, had still had a car loan. I had another like business loan that I wanted to pay off, and I still had some of those student loans. And it was a lot. Oh, and I had some IRS debt. That was another thing. There was one year, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I had another business partner, and we made a lot of money. And I didn't really account for that in my estimated payments, and ended up owing the IRS $50,000. And I didn't have the cash to pay it. So I got a payment plan. But that money had just been, I've been paying like $600 a month, like forever. It was just looming over me because every time I filed my taxes or got a refund, it went against the debt. So fast forward now, I declared last year that I was going to be debt free in 2023. And a couple of years before, I got really serious about really understanding what my debt looked like. So I had a spreadsheet, Cindy's pay down spreadsheet, and I list everybody that I owed money to, the interest rates, like what I was paying, and really tackled the little ones first. And so anything that I could pay off quickly, I did that and then took that money to put towards, larger debt. Anything that had like the highest interest though, I tackled that first. So if the smaller one, I could say I owed $10,000 to somebody, but the interest rate was really low and I owed $30,000 to somebody else and the interest rate was high, I actually tackled that $30,000 one first with the higher interest rate. I was able to get everything organized. And this is really the lesson here. If you are going to tackle a weight loss journey or a financial freedom journey or any of that, you have to take a snapshot of what you're looking at, because otherwise you're just winging it. And is it difficult? Yes, it's difficult. So I had a couple business credit cards that I had some significant debt on, nothing I'm proud of, but it happened. And I decided to close down those accounts. And I worked with a company to get me a lower interest rate. They weren't willing to give me a lower interest rate to pay it off. And so I went with, and it didn't affect my credit score at all. And I was able to get those interest rates down to like 2.9%. I paid a fee to this nonprofit company, and I'll leave that in the comments below what it was, so you can check it out if you want. And I don't get any referral links for them, but they were really great. I paid them $60 a month. They reorged it. I shut down those credit cards, and it didn't have any negative effect on my credit score. But what it did is actually raised my credit score, which was really kind of amazing. So instead of paying a lot of money every month towards, this debt, I mean, I was paying the minimum payments. I was able to do that. And plus a couple $1,000s. I mean, there was probably $40,000 there that needed to get paid down. Now I paid a much lower payment at a lower interest rate, and I wasn't getting consumed with the interest. The next thing that I really did, and I took it seriously, was like, what big project can I do to infuse a huge chunk of money? And then this house with my son, it was like the perfect storm. Like we hit the market really right. Now he could have, the house needed a lot of repairs. We could have just sold it as is, but I made the decision with my son and my partner Dave, just like, let's go all in. Let's invest, $75,000, $80,000. Let's fix it up. And the market was really good. And we were able to make several $100,000 on the house and it sold very quickly because the market was hot. My son and I split that money, and he was able to pay off his debt and I was able to pay off the rest of my debt. So I achieved my debt free in 23. Now that all sounds very simple, but it's been a lifelong journey of not only learning how to manage money, right? Very good at making money for other people, and I was very good at making money for myself. But I think I just had this really limited mindset that I wasn't good at money. So I would never be able to manage money on my own. Like I always needed somebody's help. And that's not true. Like this isn't that difficult. It's being aware of what you're spending every month. It's being aware of identifying what you need versus what you want. It's being aware of backing away from instant gratification. I've made it very clear on here that I have ADHD, and instant gratification and the dopamine high is all about me, right? Like that is it is part of who I am. Now, I'm not one to go shopping for expensive handbags, and I don't buy big ticket items. That's not where I would spend frivolous money. But I am the shiny object girl, and I am a salesperson's greatest dream. Like, because if I get excited about something, I want it, and then I kind of become hyper fixated on it. But they're really not big ticket items, which is wild. So, for me, going to Goodwill on a Saturday or going to yard sales and spending $100 is far more fun than going and buying, a fancy sports car or a $5,000 handbag or a $300 pair of shoes. Like that's just not who I am. But, the invent of credit cards makes it very easy to just buy, right? And before you know it, at the end of the month, you've spent $5,000. Like, so those little purchases add up, and I was really never aware of doing it. Now, some people say the best way to do this is to just work in cash only. But I also like my airline points, and I've saved hundreds of, well, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've saved easily into tens of thousands of dollars, on my traveling using my airline points. So I do put everything on my credit card and pay it off every month. And, as far as my, business credit cards and stuff like that, since I became debt free in 23, which was an amazing moment in my life, I have not paid an interest payment at all on any of my credit cards. And so now I track all my spending. Like, what am I spending on? I think now twice before I hand somebody my credit card, even for business expenses, right? And I don't have a strict budget, but I know now when big ticket items are going to come up. I mean, I use a lot of things for my business, like online tools and things that I know, like I pay for them on a yearly basis because I can save money doing that versus paying monthly. Like, I always used to do the monthly thing because I was always like so nervous about paying up front for the whole year. Like, it was just a lot of money, and I got really anxious about those big ticket items. But spending $99 a month or $47 a month was easy. It wasn't like it was real money. So I've stopped all of that. And now I do annual subscriptions to things that I know I'm really going to love. If I'm trying something out new, then I'll only do a month to test it. But if I do like it and I'm going to incorporate it into my business, I switch it to an annual plan because oftentimes I can save 2 to 3 months. I'm not here to give financial advice, though. What I'm here to talk about is the mindset behind money. And maybe you grew up like me, where people didn't talk about money. And hell, they don't teach you how to write a check in school anymore. Like, they just don't talk about that. So these everyday tools are so important. And if you grew up like me with a negative mindset around money, people have money, they argue about it. And so, and I never really thought I could be a millionaire. I never thought that I could have a lot of money. I just never thought I had it in me. And I joked around, like, if I ever won the lottery, like, that would be anxiety provoking for me. Like, I have a financial planner, like, on speed dial. And I would tell him, like, Matt, if I ever won the million, like, like, that just freaks me out. Like, what am I going to do with it? It's like, Cindy, that's crazy. Like, if you won the lottery and you got $4 billion or whatever, he's like, that's not anything to be anxious about. One, you can call me and we can figure it all out. But two, it's money. That's it. And it was such a huge eye opening for me. Like, I equated money and to something that was far more than just a transaction. Like, you work, you get paid. You sell something, you get paid. You want something, you pay. Money is just a transaction. It's a tool that you use in a transaction. And I was putting on myself like this big something over money that was really holding me back to managing my money better and to making more money and all of that. So on my journey over the past so many years to get debt free in 23, um, from just taking a real snapshot of where I was to truly figuring out how to make it all happen and to finally figuring out the one big thing that was just going to end it all. I've learned to have such a growth mindset over money and to truly understand that it is just money. You can have it, you cannot have it. And I know that I know how to make money, that I now know how to manage money, and not to fear spending money, not to fear having a lot of money, not to fear having no money. It's just money. It's a piece of paper or a coin or a crypto bit or byte or whatever they are, because I really have never delved into cryptocurrency, but it's just what you pay for a transaction or get paid for a transaction. So, the more that I thought about it and the more that I've kind of come to a realization that my past had such an influence on, my money mindset, let's call it. I was like, you know what? This is something that we have to talk about. Because here's other things that came into that. When I started my first business, I was afraid to ask for the money that I was truly worth or to put a high ticket number on something I was selling. And through therapy and coaching and all of that, I realized that I just didn't feel like I was worthy of that. That negative money thing started coming back in, right? Well, I can't charge $1,000 an hour for that, or I can't charge $100,000 for an engagement. Like I've never done that. Like that's a lot of money and it freaked me out. And if it weren't for, again, some coaches and therapists and mentors that I worked with who said, Cindy, it's a six-figure deal. Make the phone call, ask for it, fill out the contract. If they don't want to pay you what you're worth, then they're not worthy of you. It has nothing to do with your worth to them. It's just not the right fit or the right time or whatever. That's a six-figure deal. My first six-figure deal, I was sitting in a restaurant with my then mentor and now one of my closest friends. Her name is Robin Benneman. So if you're listening, Robin, cheers to you. I'm sure you remember the day. And I had a big corporate client, and I had never really worked with corporate clients. I mainly worked with middle market or smaller businesses. And this was my big first corporate deal. And this gentleman wanted me to do something. And I was like, oh, geez, I don't know what to charge, maybe like 15,000 or, and Robin's like, Cindy, again, this is a six-figure deal. You're going to call him right now and you're going to say just that. Hey, I'll call him Joe. Hey, Joe, great. I can handle the project for you. It's a six-figure deal. At that point, it was a three-part thing. And I told him it was a $150,000 deal. And he's like, well, we only have a $100,000 budget. I'm like, okay. He's like, great. When can you start? I was going to go in there and do the three-part deal for like $30,000. Like we often make assumptions of what other people are willing to pay or the value on it, right? Now, if he'd come back and said, I can only do that for $20,000, my friend Robin would have been kicking me under the table and said, no, no, that's not happening. Because I had drawn the line in the sand. Okay, this is a $100,000 deal. So for all of my entrepreneurs out there or salespeople that get cringy over the money, I hear you. I hear you, and I'm not judging you, and you're not alone because it took me a very long time to get to a point where I was like, no, my time is valuable, and I know I'm not for everybody, but this is $10,000, this is $20,000, this is $500, this is $50, whatever that number is. And here's the other thing, like that limited mindset always tries to sneak back in, always tries to sneak back in, especially if I'm launching something new or if I'm going into a new market. That scary little girl comes back and it's like, oh, well, maybe, I need to only charge. No, it's a six-figure deal. I'm using the six-figure deal sort of as a broad thing. It could be a seven-figure deal. It could be like a five-figure, whatever that is. But elevating my mind back to that moment in that restaurant where my friend Robin said, no, no, if they're not willing to pay you what you deem you're worth, they're just not right for you. And that's okay. There's somebody else that they can work with. So it's just important, not just, it's very important to really catch yourself because we often don't recognize that limited money mindset that we have, right? And it could come back. I mean, maybe your parents did talk to you all about budgeting and money and why you should get a whole life insurance policy when you're 18 and all of those kind of things. And maybe you didn't do that. And maybe you feel bad. Maybe you feel like you failed. It's time to let it go. Today's a new day. Maybe you're like me and you just didn't know anything about money, right? You didn't. And you, on top of that, had like a negative connotation with money. It's okay. Today's a new day. So, one of the things that really helped me move beyond this sort of negative space with money was educating myself. And in my mastermind group, I'm surrounded with financial planners and with bankers. I started working in the banking industry. I started learning more about money. I began working in the insurance industry. I learned about risk and risk aversion and protecting our assets. I learned about money. I started investing in the stock market by myself. Did I win all the time? No, but sometimes I did, right? I researched. I can't say that I'm a guru at the stock market, but I've learned how to look at a stock. I'm looking at trends. I've learned how to really understand how businesses work financially. I've learned how to understand the power of passive income. And yes, I've read books like, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, incredibly powerful book where you want to live on the right side of the quadrant. How to make money work for you, how to not feel weird about money. And if you've gotten yourself into debt like I did, how to get out of it. Do the research. There's so much out there. Just Google it, right? Just Google it. There's tons of books on money management. There's tons of books on how to get out of debt. There's tons of books on all of it. Become educated. If you follow my podcast, you're a smart person. You're smart. Go to the library, go to Amazon, download something on your Kindle, put something in Audible. Start educating yourself about money, because the more you know, the easier it's going to be. Take a snapshot of where you are. Even if you have no debt, maybe you have zero debt. And this is the other side of it. And I deal with people like this all the time too. Maybe you have zero debt, a ton of money in the bank, and you're not living. Like I lived, didn't have a ton of money in the bank, right? So, it's all about finding that middle ground. A lot of money in the bank. So what are you holding on to? What is that limited mindset about not spending money? You've become such an excessive saver, you're afraid to spend it. What is that fear that's holding you back? For me, like if you've been with me a hot minute, you know that I'm a YOLO girl. You only live once. Put $10,000 in my 401k or take my kids on a fabulous vacation, or my family or whomever. I'm going to take the vacation because memories are more powerful than money. I 100% would still do that. But buy something frivolous that's just going to give me joy for about 5 minutes versus putting money in my 401k. I'm going to put the money in my 401k. Like I'm actually, now that at 61, I'll be 62 in August, I'm actually eligible to take Social Security here in the States in August. I'm not going to do that. Why? Because I've actually crunched the numbers. I've looked at, where I want to be, and I've decided at this point in my life that I'm going to wait until 70 and maximize those benefits. Some of you may disagree on that, but I'm still working and I want to keep working, and I don't need that money right now. So I'm going to let it sit there. After 70, it doesn't go up anymore. So I'll definitely be taking it at 70. Do the homework. Is it scary? Yeah, it's scary. It's scary because I had to address something that I really knew nothing about. And the more that I learned about it, and more that I hung out with bankers who really got money, the more that I hung out with financial planners and investors and private equity people, the more that I was like, okay, yeah, it's a little complicated, but I don't need to be like them. I just need to absorb some of their knowledge so I can make educated decisions on my own. Do the homework, gain the knowledge, assess where you are, figure out what type of person you are. Do you have debt that you need to figure out, or you like have so much savings and you're not living? Find the balance in the middle. Find the balance. You can't take it with you. But you want to have enough money to live a life that is happy and joyful for you, whatever that looks like. And for some people, that's a lot of money. For me, it's not a lot of money, but I don't want to stress over money ever again in my life. And for probably 40 plus years of my life, I did stress about it. And I had the limited mindset around it. The last 10 or so years, I've really worked hard to move beyond that. And when I tell you that it is incredibly liberating, mind blown. It is beyond liberating. It's beyond liberating to like look at all of my accounts and see zero balance. to not have a car payment, to not have a credit card payment, to actually get a refund from the IRS, right? To just not worry about how much money is in the bank. And my bills are very small now that I mean, I still use my credit cards and I pay them off every month. But I mean, I hope this was helpful. Again, I'm not a financial guru. What I am is financially educated and comfortable and confident. And I wish that for you too, because I know there's a lot of you out there who were just like me. You have a lot of debt, you're embarrassed by it, you don't want to talk about it, and you ignore it. But I promise you it's not going to go away. So make today number one, day number one. Get out all those statements, create a spreadsheet or do whatever, and write it all down. How much do you owe? When are the payments due? What's the balance? What are the monthly payments? What do you got coming in? Maybe you need to get a side hustle, a part-time job to pay it off. Maybe you need to go ask for a raise. Maybe you need to do what I did and find a company to reorg your credit card debt. There's a lot of ways to slice it and dice it, but it all has to start with you. And money isn't bad. Money can do a lot of great things. You can donate to charities. You can go on dream vacations. You can wake up in the morning and not feel stressed about going to the grocery store or how you're going to pay for something. Having a positive money mindset is so incredibly liberating and powerful, and it will change your life. So I'm sending you some great mojo today. I hope that you take action. If you want to reach out to me personally, I can hook you up with some colleagues who are really good at this and can help you. And I will put that nonprofit in the comments for the podcast. So anyway, sending big love to all of you. Again, if you want more information about me, about my coaching programs or working with me, you can find everything at www.cindy-donaldson.com. And you don't forget to sign up for my newsletter that goes out every Monday and Thursday with lots of inspirational life hacks that, like this one, that will really change your life for the better. Have a great day. Bye.